Okay, what would you say to if I came to you as your constituent and all this nonsense is going on? Uh, we're heading towards a um, very suppressive government system. What would you suggest that people do to fight back?
Every single town hall that I have this question pops up because I think that the mindset that we've been in is, well, just hold the line. Let's get to the midterms and let's depend on electoral politics to save us. Voting every 2 years is not enough anymore. Electing people like me throughout the country, retaking the entire Democratic House majority and taking over the Senate, that's not enough anymore. People need to understand that we need to build a government it's governed by the people again. We have become the silent majority for way too long. We've allowed the government to get away with everything. I would say that I would absolutely look into boycotts right now. Look at corporations that are part of the problem and see where you can hit them where it hurts. I would encourage people to engage in peaceful acts of civil disobedience. If you look throughout American history and throughout world history, few victories have come from electoral politics alone. It has to be combined with massive civil resistance efforts, and I think a lot about my parents who were anti-war activists during the Vietnam War. When I look at that level of civil disobedience and collective effort, that's what we need here in America again. I love the No Kings protests. I love that millions and millions of people are showing up. But when we just hold signs and we wave in the middle of the street, that's not really a protest. That ends up turning into what I call a parade. A protest is when fortunately, you might have to impede traffic. You might have to shut down the economy, the energy transportation sector. You have to hit them where it hurts. So look into the corporations that are part of the problem right now. Consider economic boycotts. Consider peaceful acts of civil disobedience. Consider getting involved with mutual aid and community support programs directly in your neighborhood. Get plugged in with your neighbors because we're still under this kind of form of like post-COVID isolationism where people aren't collectively as engaged as they need to be. So I would just encourage people to remember that they have the power. This is supposed to be a constitutional republic where you elect a representative that advocates for you. But that's not enough anymore. We need people to get louder. And I know that as we get more and more into this autocratic and authoritarian subjective nature of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, people are going to grow more desperate. And I think you're seeing a lot of these acts of civil disobedience and resistance right now, whether it's in Minneapolis, whether it's in cities like Philadelphia. You're going to continue to see these collective community efforts to kind of take back the power. And I would encourage people to get involved with that.
Do you think ICE is going to come to Colorado?
So ICE already is in Colorado. Whether or not they're going to have a massive mobilization like they have in Los Angeles, Chicago, Minneapolis, absolutely. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. Because the biggest thing that I'm trying to warn people about is they're not going to cancel the midterm elections. That's not what they're going to do. But what they're going to use, they're going to deploy ICE to blue states, to blue cities. They're going to have them stand outside of the voting precincts. They're going to have them demand identification from people standing in line. They're going to do what they've always done, and that's suppress votes. When they can incite fear, look at how it is in Minneapolis right now. Businesses are shut down. People are afraid to go out into the streets. They're going to use their harassment and intimidation tactics, and they have a bone to pick with Colorado. So I absolutely expect them to come here on at least a larger mobilization than they have right now.
What do you think about the internment camp in Hudson?
I was actually there just the other night at the protest. I was fortunate enough to speak to the crowd for a few minutes and tell them exactly how I felt. I stand with the statement that we don't need concentration camps in Colorado. We don't need the for-profit prison industrial complex, GEO Group, who treats human beings as a profit model that wages, really, really repressive conditions for folks to live in. It is all a system of profit. These are the folks that are plugged into it. They love Trump's immigration policy because they know that they can make money off of it. I think that we have a collective responsibility to oppose that with every bone in our body. And I have been engaged with a lot of the community organizers that are rallying around that, and I plan to continue to do more. And I think that one of the biggest things we can do is talk about it.
How can we get more connected? I know there's things going on, but there's no central clearinghouse so that we can all get more out of every effort because we're all doing it moving in the same direction at the same time.
I think you're right. I've seen a lot of that, whether it's the indivisible groups and there's no overlap or connection, whether it's some of these, there's so many different issues going on right now. There's activists that are really speaking out about the genocide that's happening in Gaza. There's folks that are incredibly focused on preserving our democracy and exposing some of the corruption that's going on. There is separate elements within the political party. I think that's our biggest challenge right now, is we're very disorganized, but we all have common and collective goals. I would tell anybody who asked that exact question to spend more time on TikTok. I know that sounds crazy, but I have met amazing activists throughout the entire state.
You haven't heard what's happened with TikTok.
I know what's going on with TikTok. Yeah,
it's basically shut down, and they're not posting anything political.
I've experienced my own algorithmic suppression the last couple of days, and I've been talking to folks. I don't know how it's going to pan out, but up until this point, I have connected with numerous activists throughout the entire state with a common and collective goal. I've approached people have approached me. I would still ask us to employ social media as a form of political organization, but I'm going to really have to put my brain into that to think about how we can get more organized. It's a difficult task.
Pretty new development.
I'm really worried about that, because I feel like that was one of the last really expressive, like if you pay attention to Meta, I used to get so much activity and connection on Facebook and Instagram, and now I can see it in real time that my posts are being suppressed. I used to be able to connect with millions of people on Twitter, and now sometimes I create a post and I can get 25 or 35,000 engagements. Other times I get 300. There's so much suppression because the oligarchs have seized social media, because they understand how it's a powerful form of organization. So I think that we might need to look at what we always do: put the chalk back on the blackboard and create our own social media programs. And there's intelligent people all throughout the country that are very capable of doing that, and I think they're working on it right now. So I would say stay tuned for the next couple of weeks, because I think there's going to be a rollout.
Good. All right. The Customs and Border Patrol and ICE have killed American citizens. And it's what Minneapolis is going through is just horrendous. How can people keep up their fighting spirit?
Such a good question, isn't it? It's so hard. I woke up, not feeling well last Saturday, and turned the news on, and man, that just made the day even worse. That felt like one of the longest days we've experienced in a while. Through that pain, through that suffering, comes one positive aspect, and that's a collective unification that I think America has been missing out on for quite some time. I saw more and more protest. I saw more and more people using their voices to say, like, hey, these are radical times that we're in. Where's our revolutionary spirit? America was founded and forged through the crucible of revolution. And I'm not encouraging any acts of violence, but I think that we're going to have to consider whether this government is sustainable going forward or not, whether ICE and Border Patrol are sustainable whatsoever going forward. I would just say, look at the unity that's happened in Minneapolis. Look at the unity and solidarity throughout the country right now. I just read a poll the other day that said something like 85, and it probably should be higher, but 85% of all Democrats, stand in firm opposition to this right now. Don't give up the fight, because they want to use fear is a metric of authoritarianism. They rely on fear. They rely on intimidation. They rely on suppression. That's exactly what they want. They want us to invert into our fear and stay in our homes and stop talking to people and shut down and give up hope. I keep my hope by looking at my children every day. I have 3 young children, and I look at them and I think there is no way that I'm giving up now. Not when the country needs us the most, not when our children and grandchildren need us the most. Fight, because we fought through worse things. We didn't choose to be born into this time, but the universe decided that this is when we were going to be born. This is when we were going to exist. And I always tell people, in 20 years, 10 years, whenever all this is over, what side of history do you want to be on? How do you want the history books to perceive us? And I know that I want my kids and grandkids to talk about it and say, Mom and Dad stood up for what was right even when it was hard. And I'm seeing a lot of moms and dads throughout the country right now that are feeling that way. So don't give up the American spirit. We've lived through bad times before. The world has lived through bad times before, and we've survived it. And I genuinely believe that through all the pain and suffering, we'll come out stronger, and we'll save our democracy in the process.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to say?
There's always things I want to say, but whenever somebody asks me that, I kind of freeze up. The thing that I'll touch on briefly is that the thing that I'm very encouraged about this year is people are paying attention to the primary elections, right? Typically in the past, people don't pay attention to the primaries. This is my second run for the seat. When I ran in 2024, I was the only candidate that got national attention. I was the only candidate that was building a campaign that was capable of meeting the moment that we're in. But I used to talk to people in 2024 and they would say, oh, I'll vote for a carpet over Lauren Boebert. And while that's probably true for all of us, I think that that's part of the problem. I think that just saying that you're going to show up and vote in the general election, or that you're going to allow text messages on your phone to say, hey, this is the candidate that I'm going to vote for. It's almost a universal fact that the most well-funded candidate typically is not the candidate that's designed to meet the moment that we're in. When I look at when I talk to people in this district and I hear them say, oh, well, one of your primary opponents has $6 or $7 million. They've raised that in a couple months. I always ask, how? How do you raise that type of money? And so I like to tell people that you don't raise that kind of money without being connected to the Washington, D.C. money pipeline, without having the blessing of the political establishment. To me, I look at that as a continuation of more of the same. I think that too often the political establishment is years behind what the political climate is in America right now. And one thing that I can tell you is people are hungry for progressive change. They are hungry to meet disruptors of the status quo. They are hungry for fighters. And I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight for this district. I'm going to fight for my people. I will go to Washington and fight harder than I think anybody has ever seen before. So I'm very thankful that people are paying attention to the primary this year, because you have a choice. We have an obligation to be more involved in our democracy, because winning the primary election is completely different from winning the general election. This district has 21 counties, right? The number one population center is Douglas County, south of Denver, where about 47% of the district lives. All the candidates, beside myself, live in Douglas County. Okay. And that creates a problem, because Douglas County is an amazing county. They're a great county full of great people, but they're very urban compared to how northern Colorado and the other remaining rural counties are. They're typically not working class candidates. None of the folks that I'm running against, other than one, holds a full-time job. And I think that that's important. If we want to win this district, ready? In 2024, we lost Weld County to Lauren Boebert by, I think Boebert got 68% of the vote. It might have even been a little higher. That is not a sustainable path to victory. We need to win in Douglas County. We have to win big in Loveland, and we have to win big in Windsor. We have to win big in Arapahoe County, and then we have to stop the bleed out on the Eastern Plains. We don't have to win those counties, but we have to reduce the margins by which Republicans win. It's very hard for candidates from south of Denver to go out onto the Eastern Plains and connect with those traditionally conservative communities. I grew up in a conservative community. I grew up in agriculture. I grew up working on factory floors. I can connect with the blue collar workers. It's right now the white male working class voters that are being bled from the Democratic Party faster than we can replace them. And we have to bring those folks back into the party if we want to build a sustainable coalition that can actually win elections again. So I'm the candidate, in my opinion, that can bridge the rural and urban divide, because that's what's going on in this district. And I think I could do it more effectively than my primary opponents. So I would just like to ask everybody to continue to look me up on padoraforcongress.com, follow me on social media, and help be a part of this, because there's a role for you on this campaign. I can't do it alone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.